What's up, you guys? This is Rob from Guy Plays, and today on the Snapshot, it's all about getting them nice and deep when we take a look at Hydroid's Watery Grave build. Now, before we jump into the build, I really want to lay out some mechanics for you guys because while you can use this as your standard Hydroid build, you know, crowd control, CC, all of that kind of stuff, there are some really interesting tips and tricks that you can use to turn him into a melee master. Now, during his rework, a lot of people talked about his CC potential when it comes to his tentacles, his corroding barrage, and his puddle, but one of the things that doesn't really get touched on much is his invulnerability states. And I actually found this to be very, very interesting because one of the big changes that actually occurred was exactly how he could get in and out of his puddle. So as you can see here, whether you're bullet jumping or you're sliding, you can actually go into your puddle really easily, and you can even jump out of your puddle. And this opens up a lot of possibilities when it comes to melee or getting in close to your enemies. So now that we've got the invulnerability mechanic out of the way, there's another mechanic that I wanted to introduce you to. And this is kind of like one of those things I like to keep my mouth shut on, especially when something is a little too good and I'm afraid it's going to get nerfed. I'm like, how can I say this as subtly as possible without making it overtly obvious so people don't like go, y'all gotta nerf this DE. But there's something that occurs with knockdowns. Now, a lot of people already know that with the use of condition overload, knockdowns do count as a condition so that it can affect the multipliers, because blast procs have two parts: the initial blast, which counts as one, and the actual knockdown, which counts as another. But there is something else that actually occurs with knockdowns as well. It happens really, really frequently in the simulacrum, and happens fairly regularly. I won't say it happens, you know, completely, how do I put this? I won't say that it happens completely normally in actual gameplay. It happens fairly often in gameplay, but you'll take a look at this now. Now, you guys remember, I was using the Legion for this. Legion's got a 5% critical chance, so when you see all of these yellow numbers here, it is not because we are, it's not because we're inflicting crits on them, but it's because sometimes when an enemy is trying to get up from a knockdown, it triggers an alert state, which means that your melee can get a 4 times critical multiplier. So as you can see here, I'm kind of demonstrating the technique. You don't necessarily have to jump down at the enemies, but what you gotta do is just get them in the puddle, and then start inflicting a shit ton of damage. Whoops! And this is the great thing about the puddle. You can literally, if something doesn't go as planned, just jump back into it. And this is actually how I like to engage. You jump out, and you do a ground slam, and sometimes you'll get a tentacle. In there, and you can just basically come after your enemy pretty easily. So that's actually the way that I like to approach the situation, is to leap out of there and do a ground slam. Now, of course, you don't always get the tentacle, but you usually don't always need the tentacle, to be honest with you. So as you can see here, we just duck down. If there's somebody out of your way, you just kind of wait there. And you can pop back up, do some ground slams, do some ground finishers, and sink back down if there's any issues. Of course, we're talking about level 150s. Usually, you just knock me down, but I'll knock them down too. Usually, when it comes down to things like this, you can just basically keep inflicting these self-multipliers on these enemies, and they just die like it's nothing. And that's what I'm absolutely loving, because you can actually just either bullet jump into a big pile of enemies with this. So you can do a little bit of this action, and just come down on them like a big puddle from heaven. And then get out of the puddle, and just start hitting them with the self-multiplier stuff. Sink back down if there's anything that hasn't quite died yet. And then continue doing that. And that is the big basis of this Watery Grave build, is getting down into a puddle, using your melee weapons to inflict ground finishers, to inflict more damage via condition overload, and to get that 4 times stealth multiplier. Of course, there are other ways that you can use this build, as, you know, normal CC and normal kind of like control, but this just kind of goes to show that if you think a little bit out of the box and you get a little bit more creative, you can create a completely different way to play with Hydroid. Oh, that sounds very seductive. Now, as for the build, it's honestly all pretty flexible. This is just what I like to run with. Some survivability. Prime flow always works really, really well because of the fact that, you know, you want to be in and out of puddle. Sometimes you want to move around puddle. So it's nice to have a big power pool to draw from. Of course, fleeting expertise and streamline just basically let you combo as many abilities as you want. So let's say you want to toss down a corroding barrage, or you want to use your puddle into your splash dash. You can go ahead and do that too, just in case you want some mobility, and will allow you to kind of grab a bunch of enemies with your tentacles without really feeling much hurt when it comes to your energy pool. So those are the big things in there. Where we have points of contention is, do you really need 15% like range increase? No, you don't really have to. You can go ahead and put in a power strength thing in there if that's the way you're feeling. It's not really that big a deal. We've also got corroding barrage. Now clearly, if you're just going to be playing the star chart, or you're not going to be playing something that has a lot of armor, you can take corroding barrage out, put power strength in, put stretch in, whatever you like. Curative undertow, honestly for me, is a favorite. I like having it there, especially because if you're kind of like dashing from enemy to enemy, maybe you get a stray bullet, or maybe you get a stray blast or whatnot. Curative undertow basically allows you to patch up while you're putting enemies into that knockdown state. So for me, that's kind of a must. Like, I would get rid of corroding barrage before I get rid of curative undertow, especially when you've got a lot of melee weapons that can bypass armor. But that's just my personal feelings about the situation. You build the way that you want to build, okay? Clearly one of the things that we're missing out here is we're not really running this as a pilfer droid. There are different builds for that, but that's not what we're talking about today. So we can talk about that next time. Alright, so usually I go ahead and play public missions when it comes to this, and I usually play longer missions, but I'll be honest, I just recorded another version of this, and then I realized that exterminate took me like forever and a day to finish, and the video went on for like 20 minutes, and I'm like, probably not what everybody wants to watch is like hours and hours of me just trying to do this. But I wanted to show you exactly the way that this worked out in the real world, as you would say. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is it doesn't always do the stealth finishers. It's not 100% consistent. Not stealth finishers. I mean inflict the 4x stealth multiplier. It's not 100% consistent. And I think that that's maybe one of the reasons why DE hasn't fixed it, or hasn't gone to fix it, or I don't know what. But as you can see, sometimes it goes off without a hitch, and then sometimes, like right there, nothing happens at all. I mean, you still get the ground finisher, you know what I mean? But you don't get the 4x stealth multiplier. Then sometimes you don't get the 4x stealth multiplier till they start to get up, you know, until they start to try to actually move to, you know, actually try to put themselves back in a normal position. So I don't know if that's, you know, just the way that the mechanic works, if it has something to do with the AI, maybe trying to recover or whatnot. But I have a feeling that that might, you know, be a part of the issue. So I figured instead of doing a big long exterminate, I would actually just go ahead and let's see, did I capture this guy? No! Wait, hold on. Let me see. Can I put you in a puddle? No, you're unpuddleable. Shame. Hold on. But yeah, I figured that instead I would go ahead and do a capture and just kind of like chat with you guys about all of the feelings afterwards. But yeah, so that's kind of like one of the reasons why I don't know if it's gonna get patched or whatnot. But it hasn't been patched for the longest time, so we just won't talk about it anymore. The thing that I really like about this build is the fact that, you know, it is what I use for normal CC and whatnot. It's what I use for just, you know, standard and regular play, but because of the fact that you kind of look at it from this whole perspective of invulnerability phases and being able to kind of cluster enemies together, I mean, you could use this for a lot of different things. If let's say you like, if you like the lens, you can literally gather enemies together, fire it, and like really just literally just duck back down. You can literally just duck back down and kind of escape your own lens explosion. You know what I mean? But no, I think that it's a really fun and really different, and it's a new way to kind of mix things up instead of doing the exact same thing over and over. I mean, you could definitely mix this up with just regular standard gameplay. Come here. You can mix this up with regular standard gameplay, but at the same time too, you can kind of use it on its own if you just want to solo and you want to try out something different with Hydroid, because, you know, it gets very, very samey, and I think that a lot of people kind of have this preconceived notion of how to play Hydroid, and I think that's the same thing that happens with a lot of frames. You know, we have these preconceived notions as how we're supposed to play games. But when you kind of get a little bit more creative with it, you can kind of take a look and literally see all the different things that you can do. And right there is kind of like one of the other things that I like with this ability too. If you can get a good amount of enemies lined up, you can kind of scoop them all together and swish them into a corner. And I think that tends to be like right here. You just kind of swish them in there, except for that guy didn't get knocked down. And I think these guys didn't get knocked down because there's an ancient healer. But it's okay. It's okay. They will make it up. Let's see if I can get him. He's too far. Boo. But I can get you. And the interesting thing about this too is I usually am not a fan of his passive. You guys have heard me kind of go on record about that in the past. I'm like, this is a stupid passive. But the fact that you can now literally go into the puddle. Hey, hold on, let me grab these guys real quick. Just you know, I don't like to have random floaters around. I would rather have it all in the same spot. You can actually just jump out of your puddle, you know what I mean, do a ground slam, and potentially, number one, you know, deal a crap ton of damage to the enemies that are around you, but also potentially spawn a tentacle to kind of like grab maybe any drone that is causing you some issues. Please, kill a drone! That's also why I really like this ability too, is because of the fact that you can grab drones with it. Now, sometimes it's a little bit rough to actually get those drones. This is gonna be a weird, spot. I don't know how this is gonna work. Will they all end up in here, or they end up underneath? Did they end up underneath? I think they might have ended up underneath. But yeah, so it's kind of like a different way to play, and really teaches you not to kind of just play it the exact same way that everybody's been doing all this time, and also shows you what happens when you pay attention to certain mechanics that are a little obscure and nobody really talks about too much for specific reasons. But combining them kind of makes for a really interesting way to play, you know? And I think that's what this game all boils down to, because, you know, you could run around here with Ember and do it that way, and, you know, there's no fault or there's no shame in that whatsoever. But literally, you can say that about any other Warframe in the game, right? Why play any other frame when Ember is the fastest as Exterminate? So you should always, 100% of the time, play Ember when you're playing Exterminate. If you're not doing that, then you've done it wrong. Oh my god, come here. Come here, come here. This is one thing about drones that you'll notice with the puddle, is that sometimes drone doesn't work, puddle doesn't work on drones, which is, it happens sometimes. You can do it like there, but sometimes drones are just really, really stubborn, and they just don't play along, and it makes me angry. And you guys know that that the drones are literally my worst enemy in the world. Let's finish you guys off here real quick. Come here. No, 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 no. Get back here. Get back here. Come here. Come here. No. You know what? You know what? Fuck this. And that is why I love the new corroding barrage. Where is it? Where is this? There's a. Did we already get the? No. Come here. And at the end of the day, sometimes it's about really enjoying what you're playing, and as you can tell, this is definitely a build that I find really, really fun. And like I said, you know, this isn't like a pill for droid or anything. So if you're looking for that kind of build, we can cover that in the future. You can leave that in the comments if that's something you're really, really looking for. But this is the build, you know, that I'll use for standard missions, and as you can see here, you can use it for normal standard control. There's nothing wrong with using it for normal standard control. But at the same time, you get to kind of mix this in. As you can see, he's still really, really mobile when it comes to it too. Literally, you can just bullet jump towards an enemy. Let's see if we can get like maybe this. You can still bullet jump at this enemy and literally just duck down, going for a ground finisher, going for another one. They're both fine. And see, because of the fact that you're using a weapon with a fairly chunky range. Wait, where are you going? Come here. Come here. You know, because you're going for a weapon with a fairly chunky range, you can go ahead and rush at enemies. See? Whoop. And you still got a little motion to you too. There's still a little momentum. But yeah, it's really, really easy and really, really fast. You know, I mean, this is of course me talking while I'm explaining it to you, but if I don't sit down and have the conversation with you, I can actually kind of just like kamikaze launch myself at enemies as a puddle. And I love the fact that it looks really blobby. He looks like a big old blob, like when you're in the air. Hold on. Blob. You just have this water, have this wall of water coming at you. Right? Bam. Oh, there you go. Alright, let me get out of here. The job's done. But I was having a little too much fun there. So it's kind of like a variation for you guys to play around with, and you can take advantage of some interesting mechanics that, you know, let's not talk about it any louder than we're talking about it now, because I wanna keep that a thing. I don't know what it is with the AI that does all of that kind of stuff, but it's something we can, I don't want to say take advantage of because it sounds so dirty when I say take advantage of, but it's a mechanic that exists in game that we can currently utilize. Let's put the phrasing there for you. And real quick before I close this out, a lot of people were questioning what my builds were going to end up being for the Nami Skyla Prime and the Ballistica Prime. I figured we would cover those real fast too. Like I had said in both videos, they're all worthy of having a spot for Rivens. So the Riven that I actually ended up rolling. So I bought the Riven, but I bought like an unrolled or low-level Riven that had the appropriate slot that I wanted, which is the B slot. So I actually got this one for the Ballistica, which is Fire Rate. As you guys know, I actually said that Gunslinger was one of the variations that I really liked for this, and I felt like it worked really well at stripping off armor. So we have Pistol Pestilence, Jolt, and we have the Fire Rate, but it's also got critical damage to go along with it, so that kind of pairs well with the Prime Pistol Gambit. So it's kind of like a 2 mods in 1 kind of situation that's going on right there. And then when we come to the Nami Skyla Prime, people were talking about, you know, whether I should use Weeping Wounds or whether I should use Organ Shatter. Some people were even saying Relentless Combination was something, but actually, you know, my whole thing was I will probably use a Riven in this, and I went ahead and picked up a Riven and rolled one, which has attack speed and critical chance onto it. So I've actually taken out Prime Fury, added back in Organ Shatter, and because of the fact that it has a nice chunky critical chance to it, that works really, really well with Blood Rush. And while, you know, the multiplier isn't the most massive in the world, because of the fact that we can start getting orange crits and red crits with this fairly quickly, because it's got a higher base critical chance, well, not base critical chance, but higher modified critical chance that that Blood Rush works well with. Yeah, it kind of like was a common sense thing to me. I was like, all right, this is the way that it's going to end up. So for those of you who are curious, regardless, I wanted to leave you guys with that. By the way, Nami Skyla is probably what I would have normally used with this build, but I did want to show you guys with the Legion, because it's only got 5% crit chance, that all of that was stealth damage multipliers happening. But of course, we've got critical damage multipliers, we've got body count and Blood Rush, we've got, you know, condition overload. All of that works really, really well with the Nami Skyla Prime. That's what I would normally use with this as opposed to the Legion. Not that the Legion was bad in any way, shape, or form. I'm just putting it out there into the universe that I use the Legion to kind of explain the fact that those were stealth multipliers and not just criticals that naturally happened with this weapon. Just putting that out there into the universe. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys try this out, because I know that Hydroid is such a CC-centric frame that it's kind of hard to look at him as anything but. However, I really, really like this kind of way to play him. And again, you can also weave this into the natural way that you play. You know, you can set up your CC spots and all of that. And if you see a big old group of enemies, you can just puddle them, jump out of the puddle, smash down, and do a whole bunch of choppy, stabby kind of stuff. So I hope you guys make use of this. And as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll chat with you guys next time. Bye-bye.